David Miller opened his eyes. There was no sky, no ground. Just darkness, cold, still, and silent. He could not feel his body properly. It was floating, weightless, as if he were underwater. But there was no water. Only air, thick, heavy air. His limbs moved slowly, like they were tied down by invisible strings. He didn't remember falling asleep. He didn't remember being here. Wherever here was. He blinked again. Slowly, faint lights appeared above him, blue, then green, then red. They didn't blink like human lights. They moved, curved, and shimmered like jellyfish. He tried to speak, but no words came out. His voice was gone. Where am I? He didn't hear his own voice, but he thought the words anyway. That's when the walls around him started to shift. It was a room, or maybe a chamber. Metal, smooth, seamless. The air had a strange scent like burnt plastic and something sweet, like old fruit. There were no doors, no windows. Just soft glowing lines on the walls. They moved like veins. David's training kicked in. Years of discipline. He kept calm, took a slow breath, and began to scan everything with his eyes. This isn't Earth, he thought, and he was right. A soft hum filled the chamber. The kind that vibrated through your bones. Something was powering up. A voice, no, a presence touched his mind. It wasn't speaking in any human language, but somehow he understood it. Subject awake. Phase 1 begins. David tried to stand, but he couldn't. His body was being held down by some invisible force. Not pain, not paralysis, just control. Suddenly, he wasn't alone. They entered silently through the walls. Not through a door, there were still no doors, but the walls rippled like water, and 3 figures stepped inside. Aliens, not little green men. These were tall, slender. Their skin shimmered in the light, almost silver. Their heads were elongated, and their eyes were black. No whites, no pupils. Just deep, endless black. One of them raised its hand. A soft beam of blue light wrapped around David's head. His mind burned for a second, like a flash of lightning inside his skull. But he didn't scream. He had been tortured before. He had trained to resist it. The alien stepped back, surprised. Unusual resistance. Begin mental pressure sequence. David felt a strange pull inside his head, like someone was searching his thoughts. But something was off. They weren't just reading his memories. They were trying to break him. They wanted him to feel fear, shame, pain. But David didn't give in. The lights around him changed. Now they were red. The room turned into a different place. It was no longer metal. It looked like a battlefield. His battlefield. He was back in Kandahar. Sand, blood, gunfire. His best friend screaming beside him. The moment that haunted him every night. No, he whispered. But this wasn't a dream. This was a memory. The aliens had pulled it out and forced him to relive it. The shot rang. Out again. His friend fell. David ran, tried to help. He failed just like in real life. The pain stabbed his chest. He could feel the heat, the smell of blood, the smoke. But then, he stood up. He looked around and smiled. "You're inside my head now," he said calmly, even if they couldn't hear him. Big mistake. The battlefield froze. The sky turned dark. The memory cracked like glass. The aliens watching him flinched. One of them stumbled. The second held its head. The third looked confused. They had expected fear, trauma, screaming, but instead, David was in control, back outside the simulation. In their hidden ship above Earth's orbit, the aliens spoke in their own strange language. Subject is mentally unstable. Memory manipulation ineffective. Human minds are fragmented, weak. Why is this one resisting? The leader leaned closer to the screen, showing David's brain activity. He is not resisting, it said. He is redirecting. That is not possible. This one is different. Back inside the mind chamber, David stood in an empty version of the battlefield. All the other details were gone, just gray sand and smoke. But now, he was walking, calm, confident. He could feel them watching. He turned his head slowly and looked directly at the sky. "You're still there, aren't you?" He didn't need to see them to know they were panicking. "Let me show you." Something. He raised his hand. The gray sand started to shift. Shapes appeared, memories, thoughts, ideas. The aliens were still connected to his mind. And now he was sending his thoughts back to them. They saw Earth's history, war, fire, rebellion, but also music, family, kindness, strength. They didn't understand it. They couldn't handle it. The first alien stumbled back and fell. "He is showing us chaos, order, beauty, rage at once." The second one shouted, "Disconnect, disconnect." But they couldn't. Their machine was locked. And David was the one locking it. In the real world, David's body was still floating inside the chamber, but now his fingers were moving. Slowly, carefully, as if tapping into something. His heart rate was rising, but not from panic. From control. "He's interfacing with the system," the alien technician yelled. "He's rewriting input channels. That's impossible." "He's not. Connected. He is the connection." Back in his mind, David stood in front of a giant mirror. In it, he saw not himself, but the alien watching him. It looked terrified. "You came to break my mind," David said coldly. "But now you're trapped inside it." The mirror shattered. The alien screamed. In the control room, one alien fell to the ground, eyes wide open. "UNMOVING. Brain dash dead. The leader screamed, "Stop the sequence, end the interface." But it was too late. David's eyes opened. In the real world, for the first time since his capture, he took a deep breath. The air was strange, but he smiled. "Thanks for the ride," he whispered. Then something even stranger happened. The alien symbols on the wall began to change. They turned into English words. "Welcome, David." He looked up. The ship was responding to him. Learning his language. Obeying. His mind. Far away in another room, a younger alien scientist whispered to his elder, "What kind of creature is this?" The elder answered with a shake of his head, "A human." David Miller stood alone in the strange alien room. The walls still glowed with soft lights, but something had changed. He could feel it, not just in the air, but in his mind. They had entered his memories before. They had tried to control him, force pain into his head, show him his past and crush him with it. But they had failed, and now they were coming back. The air shimmered. 3 aliens appeared again, floating just above the ground. No feet touched the floor. Their long fingers moved through glowing screens in the air. They weren't using tools. Their minds controlled everything, machines, lights, even the ship. One of them spoke in that strange, cold voice. Mental resistance. Level higher than expected. Another replied, "Send the second sequence. Full psychic link. No exit until subject breaks." The leader looked at David. "Prepare. He will not survive this round." They thought they were in control. They were. Wrong. The blue beam returned. It wrapped around David's head again. He didn't fight it. Not this time. Let them in, he thought. Let them see. Darkness. David blinked. He was no longer in the alien ship. He was standing in a bedroom. Warm lights. The smell of coffee. Soft music playing. His wife's voice echoed, "Morning, soldier." But this wasn't real. This was a memory. He had been here before, long ago. Before the war. Before the missions. Before the nightmares. But this time, it didn't feel safe. Turned slowly and saw it. The alien standing in the corner, dressed like a human, pretending to be part of the memory. "How long will it take?" It asked in a fake human voice. David didn't answer. Instead, he laughed. The walls of the room cracked. The light flickered. Suddenly, The memory melted away like paint washed off glass. David stood in a black void. Now the alien's disguise faded. Its true form showed. Thin, silver skin, black eyes, long limbs. How? It asked. How are you aware inside your own mind? David took a step forward. This is my mind. You think you built this place, but you're just visitors here. You cannot resist us. David smiled. You're already inside. That means I don't have to resist. I just have to close the door behind you. Suddenly, a wall of fire rose behind David. His memories began to twist, but not with fear, with control. The alien tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. Every direction was filled with images it couldn't understand. A soldier fighting, with one arm bleeding. A boy holding a dead dog but not crying. A teenager watching his father drink in silence, learning to hold back tears. None of these were weaknesses. They were armor. Pain the aliens had never known. David moved closer. You've never lost, never loved, never bled for someone else. That's why your kind can never win. Back in the ship's control room, alarms started flashing. BRAINWAVE patterns on the screen were unstable, but not David's. The aliens, one of them screamed, clutching its head. He is attacking through memory threads. He is injecting reversed emotional feedback. That's not possible. It's happening. The leader hissed. Increase the input. Go deeper. Inside David's mind, the world changed again. Now they were in a war zone, sand blowing across destroyed tanks, bodies on the ground. But David walked calmly. The alien followed, confused. This is trauma. This is your weakness. No, David. Sighed. This is yours now. The alien looked down. The bodies on the ground had alien faces. Its own people. Burned. Gone. What is this? This didn't happen. No, David said, but it could. You want inside my mind? Then you'll feel what I feel. The alien started screaming. It tried to fly away, but the sky cracked like glass, and the stars vanished. David's voice echoed from everywhere. Let's play a game. Every fear I've ever had, every pain, you'll see it. And then, I'll show you something worse. The scene changed again. Now the alien stood in a prison cell. Cold, metal, bars. It was alone. David wasn't there. Just silence. Hours passed. Then days. Then weeks. Time moved fast here, but it felt real. The alien began to break, outside the other. Aliens panicked. Subject has trapped the link. He is feeding it simulations of isolation. It's psychological warfare. He's using himself as the battlefield. What is he? David opened his eyes in the real world again. He was still in the pod. Still floating, but something was different now. One of the walls flickered, and he saw it. A map of the ship. He understood it instantly. He could feel the data in his head. Because they gave it to him. Because he took it. He was learning the ship, learning them. Whisper entered his mind again. A soft voice. Female. Not alien, his wife. David. No, not her. It was a trick. The aliens were trying again. He closed his eyes and focused. Nice try, he said. But I know what's real now. The fake voice disappeared like smoke. Back in the ship, only 2 aliens were left. The third had collapsed, brain overloading. The leader was furious. He is not a test subject anymore. He is a threat. Then destroy the brain. No, said the younger alien. Observe. He is showing us something. Showing us what? The younger one stared at the screen. Us. Inside the mental space, David sat at a table. Across from him, the last alien appeared nervous, confused. Why are you doing this? You tried to break me. Yes, but why aren't you killing me? David leaned forward. Because pain teaches nothing, but maybe fear does. You fear nothing. David smiled softly. I did, once, before I lost everything. He stood. The room turned white, bright, peaceful, the bright. Alien blinked, no war, no blood. Just silence. David walked away. Tell your kind, not all humans break. Some bend, and some bend the world around them. Back on the ship, the system shut down. The connection was lost. David was unconscious again, but calm. His heartbeat steady. The alien stood in silence. It had seen too much, felt too much. He didn't destroy us, it said. Why not? Asked the leader. Because he's not like us. Far above Earth, a ship full of fear drifted in silence, and one human mind had turned the whole galaxy upside down. Hook, they went deeper into his mind. They thought they were in control, but what if? The maze they entered wasn't his memory anymore. Darkness, silence, but something moved, not in the real world, in the mental space, inside the human's mind. David Miller had gone quiet. The aliens thought he was finished. They thought they had survived the last mental battle. They were wrong. The lead alien, called Karail, stared at the screen. It showed David's brain waves calm, slow, but not asleep. The younger alien beside him, Sivak, studied the data. His consciousness is active, Sivak said, but not reacting. Send the probe deeper, Karail ordered. Wheel. Scan level 3, no more games. They had tried dreams. They had tried memories. Nothing worked. Now they would go to the core, the deepest layer of his mind. Place no alien had entered before. A place not even David fully understood. The neural dive began. Silver wires connected to their temples. The screen blinked. Link complete. Subject, David Miller mode. Full immersion warning. Unknown ZONE. Ignored the warning. That was their first mistake. Inside David's mind, the aliens arrived in a white room. It looked normal. Two normal. Clean walls. A wooden chair. A bookshelf full of military files. One alien said, "We're in his logic center. Begin extraction." Sivak reached for the files, but the second he touched them, the walls melted. The chair vanished. The floor turned to glass. Below them was a maze. They dropped into it. Endless corridors. Metal and stone, some twisted like spirals, some bent upside down. No gravity rules. No physics. It was alive. The maze shifted when they walked, and it wasn't random. It responded to their thoughts. Sivak looked nervous. This isn't a memory. No, said Karail. This is something he created. But why would a human create something like this? Not created, said another voice. They turned. David was standing behind them. But this David was different. He wore a black jacket. Calm expression. No fear. His eyes glowed faintly. You built this, Karail said. David shook his head. I became this. Suddenly, the maze shifted again. The floor under the aliens turned into glass, then vanished. They fell, not for meters. Not for seconds, for minutes. And landed in a new place. Hallway filled with mirrors. The mirrors showed strange things. Not David. Not Earth. They showed the aliens as children, as soldiers, as broken beings. One mirror showed Karail standing over a battlefield, his own people burned. He turned away, growling, false images. David's voice echoed, no, just memories you forgot. They ran. The hallway didn't end. Sivak shouted, end connection. Exit protocol. Nothing happened. David's voice returned. There is no exit now. This maze is alive. Because it's made of one thing. Me. In the real world, alarms blared again. They're trapped inside his mental loop. They can't log out. Subject has reversed neural authority. David's body remained still, but one hand twitched. Slightly. That was enough. Back inside. The aliens found a door, a massive metal gate with symbols on it. Human writing and alien runes blended together. On it was written, do not open. They hesitated. It's a bluff. said Kirill. Sivak didn't agree. I don't think he bluffs. But Kirill pushed the door open anyway. That was their second mistake. Behind the door was a world of war. Earth. But not as it was. It was burning. Humans. Fighting shadows. Fire in the sky. Aliens hanging from trees. A massive statue of David. Broken in half. And in the center of it all, a giant version of David. Eyes glowing. Voice booming. You wanted to know how we think. This is how we dream. This is what happens when we stop being afraid. The scene pulsed. It wasn't real, but it felt real. Pain, heat, the sound of bombs. One alien began to cry. Real tears. How can this be imagination? David's voice whispered. It's not imagination, it's belief, it's will. That's the difference between your kind and mine. You study the mind. We become it, Kirill shouted. Enough. Shut it down. He tried to use his mental commands. Nothing worked. David appeared beside him, calm as ever. You broke into my house. I didn't invite you. Kirill roared. You are one mind, one human. You cannot defeat us, David smiled. I don't have to defeat you. He pointed at the mirror behind them. You'll defeat yourselves. They turned. And saw their own thoughts swirling in the mirror. Memories they hid. Mistakes they buried. Everything they denied. Now alive. Real. One. Alien screamed and vanished. Mine burned. Another ran into the maze, never to return. Only. Carol remained. Shaking. Afraid. He looked at David. Broken and furious. You are dangerous. No, said David. I'm just prepared. Your kind is chaos. Maybe, David replied. But chaos can't be controlled. That's why you'll never win. The maze began to collapse. Walls folding. Memories burning. David stepped back, and with one breath, he whispered, Wake up. Carol shot out of the neural chamber. He screamed, grabbing his head, shaking. The chamber cracked. Sparks flew. David still lay still, eyes closed, but he had won again. And something else had changed. In the control room. A new message appeared. On the screen. System error, foreign consciousness detected, ship network BRED. Sivak turned to the others. He's inside the system. How? He's not just a prisoner now. He's a virus. Far away, in the deepest part of the alien ship's mainframe, a glowing thread moved. Between systems. It wasn't alien code. It was human thought. And it was learning. Growing. Spreading. Hook. They stepped into the mirror room to break him. But what stared back broke them instead. The ship was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels alive, like it's watching. Inside the control chamber, the alien leader Kirill stood motionless. His eyes stared ahead, but his mind was somewhere else. He had just returned from David's mental maze. He had survived. But barely. His face was pale, his skin dimmer than before. Sivak, the younger alien scientist, watched him. You saw something, Sivak said quietly. Kirill didn't reply. He just whispered. He showed me. Myself. Meanwhile, inside the memory core of the ship, David Miller was still in stasis. Floating. Eyes closed. But something strange was happening. The chamber lights, once bright blue, had turned a dim red dot, and the alien systems around him were blinking faster than usual. They weren't controlling him anymore. They were reacting to him. David's brain had connected with the ship. Not just the mental chamber, but the systems. The ship was becoming a mirror of David's mind, and the aliens didn't know what that meant yet. Sivak studied the scanner. He's too calm, heart rate stable, brain waves sharp. He's planning something. Carol, still shaken, spoke at last. He doesn't need to plan. He's already inside. Then we have one option, said a third alien, Tron. A mind specialist. We go deeper. Into the self-reflection zone. We trigger the mirror protocol. Sivak hesitated. Nobody has returned from that level. Then send a clone. Kirill ordered. Observe, record, do not engage. The mirror room inside David's subconscious. The landscape changed again. The battlefield was gone. So was the maze. Now it was just one endless hallway. White walls. A glass floor. And on both sides mirrors. Not ordinary mirrors. These mirrors didn't reflect David. They reflected everything watching him. The probe arrived. A cloned alien consciousness, just a copy. Not a real mind entered the hallway. Its sensors scanned the environment. No threat detected, until it passed the first mirror. In it, it saw not its alien form, but a small version of itself. A child. Afraid. Alone. The clone paused. Gl. I to ched, slightly, moved to the second mirror. This time, it saw a battlefield, its own people killing prisoners. The scene zoomed into its own face. Smiling while giving the command. It trembled. These were not David's memories. These were alien truths, pulled from their own data. Back in the control room, Sivak gasped. It's not David's memory, it's reflecting ours. That's impossible, said Tron. It's his mind. Carol shook his head. It's not a mind anymore. It's a weapon. The clone reached the third mirror. This time it saw David, sitting at a table, looking straight at it. Why are you doing this? The clone asked. David answered slowly. Because you need to see. See what? The truth you hide from. Even yourselves. David stood. The mirrors shattered. Glass shards floated everywhere, but didn't fall. They floated like stars in space. Each shard showed something different. An alien scientist experimenting on a child. A fleet burning a planet. A command center lying to its people. And in the center, one glowing piece. David touched it. The whole room exploded with light. Back on the ship, all systems glitche. Warnings flashed. Core reaction detected. Mirror protocol failed. Reflection backfired. Ron screamed. He's turned the mirrors against us. We triggered self-invasion. Sivak stared in disbelief. He's not just using his mind anymore. He's making us face ours. Inside the psychic space, David and the alien clone stood in a storm of memories. Alien memories. Dark ones. David looked calm. The clone was breaking. It fell to its knees. Please, stop. David walked closer. You entered my soul to break me. But you forgot the most important thing. Humans break. And then we rebuild. You run from your cracks. The clone's eyes turned dark. Its body collapsed. Gone. Kirill slammed his hand on the table. We must kill him. We can't, Sivak shouted. If we destroy his mind now, we destroy the ship's system too. He's inside everything. Suddenly, David's body in the chamber opened its eyes. Just a little, then closed them. Again. But in that brief second, all lights on the ship dimmed. David was testing control, and now he wanted more. Inside the mirror space, David stood alone now. All the glass was gone. Only a floor remained, and a single chair. He sat. Hands together, eyes closed. Let's see how far you want to go. In the alien war room, Tron and Kirill argued. We must erase his mind completely, said Tron. We'll lose the ship, Kirill said. Then launch an escape pod. Sivak spoke up, voice steady. Or maybe we try something else. The others turned. We ask him. Back in the mirror room, a new figure appeared. Sivak's consciousness. Not forced. Not a clone. He walked slowly, carefully. David didn't move. You know why we came, Sivak said. David opened one eye. To break me. To learn from you. You lied to yourselves. Yes, Sivak admitted. We did. There was a pause. Sivak looked around. Nothing moved. No tricks. No pain. Just David. Still. Waiting. You could destroy us, Sivak said. Why haven't you? David leaned forward. Because not all battles are won by burning things. Some are won by showing what the fire feels like. Sivak lowered his head. You've shown us. Good, David said. Then go back and carry the message. What message? David stood. The white space turned dark again. Just stars now. Millions of stars. He spoke. We may look fragile. We may fall, scream, and bleed, but we remember everything. And when we are broken, we don't die. We become the mirror. Hook, the ship was strong. The mind was stronger. Now the cracks were not just in David's mind. They were in reality. The alien ship floated in space, silent, massive, and dark, like a sleeping beast. Inside it, the crew was no longer calm. No longer in control. Something had changed, and that something was David Miller. In his containment pod. David's eyes remained shut, but strange things were happening around him. Lights flickered, walls buzzed, the air felt electric, and the ship's systems, designed to control prisoners, were now responding to him. The cracks had begun, not just in his mental prison, but in the real ship itself. Alien Command Room Sector 4. Sivak stood in front of a large screen. His hands shook as he read the data. Neural feedback loops are unstable. AI response time dropping 32%. Power is shifting into the core. Tron stared at the results. This isn't possible. He's unconscious. Carol answered without looking up. No, he's connected, and worse. I think he's learning. The ship's AI had started to malfunction. Doors opened on their own. Commands delayed. Alien messages scrambled. Even the walls, once solid and metallic, had started to shift slightly. Like breathing skin, something was merging. David's mind and the alien ship were blending at a level no one had ever seen before. Back in David's mind, the landscape was now a strange mix, part Earth, part alien. A city made of human memories stood beside floating alien temples. It didn't follow gravity. It didn't follow logic. Because it wasn't real anymore. It was becoming reality. David stood on a rooftop watching. He whispered, I'm almost there. Sivak decided to enter again. He stepped into the mental interface. Voluntarily, he needed to talk to David before it was too late. Inside, he arrived at a strange scene. A hallway from Earth, maybe a school. But it was upside down. And floating through it were alien machines, melted and twisted. David was there, leaning against a locker, calm. You came back, David said. I had to, Sivak replied. The ship is breaking. David raised an eyebrow. No, the ship is transforming. Sivak shook his head. You're merging with our systems. It's not safe, for you or us. David walked slowly, hands in his pockets. You wanted to understand the human mind. Well, welcome to it. He pointed at the air. Reality shimmered. The walls of the school turned into trees. The floor into sand. No, they stood in a desert. No sun. Just stars above. This is what happens when you push someone too far, David said. We don't break. We bend the universe around us. Back in the real world, the lights in the ship's bridge suddenly went out. Complete darkness. Then, red emergency lights clicked on, but they weren't red anymore. They were blinking in Morse code. Kirill stared at the pattern. Stop, he stepped back. He's using our lights to send messages now. To us? Tron asked. No, Kirill replied. To himself. Sivak spoke carefully inside the mindspace. You don't need to take over the ship. We'll let you go. We'll send you back to Earth. David stopped walking. It's not about escape. Then what is it about? David looked up at the sky. It's about showing you something real. The stars shifted again. Now they formed faces. Human faces. Old, young, laughing, crying. Millions of them. This is what you never understood, David said. We carry every face with us, every memory, every feeling, even when it hurts. Crack. The ship's floor trembled. In the real world, a large crack appeared in the corridor outside. The core chamber, metal twisted. I let out a loud mechanical shriek. Tron screamed. He's inside the power grid. Sivak, still inside David's mind, felt the change too. The air was getting heavy. The simulation was becoming unstable. You need to stop, he pleaded. David closed his eyes. You came to destroy my mind, but I've studied yours now. And I realized something. You're not evil. You're afraid. Sivak froze. What did you say? You're afraid of chaos, David said. Afraid of feelings you can't control, so you erase them. You erase pain, love, memory. But those things are what make us strong. Back in the control room, Kirill made a decision. We shut him down. Now, Tron agreed. Pull his brain out of the system. Remove oxygen. End him. But Sivak's voice came through the speaker. No. He's giving us a choice. Suddenly, David appeared on every screen in the ship. His face, calm, serious, and behind him Earth. You wanted data? He said. Here it is. The screen flooded with images. Human wars, family dinners, children learning. Old men dying in hospitals. Pain. Joy, regret, pride. Billions of feelings streamed directly into the alien network. The ship shook. The AI screamed again. One alien fell to the floor, clutching its chest. What is this? It hurts, Sivak whispered. Emotion. You're feeling. Emotion. David's voice echoed across every hallway. You tried to erase pain, but pain is not your enemy. It's the reason we fight, the reason we heal, the reason we win. The ship's outer layer began to crack. Sparks flew. Energy surged, but the core stayed stable. Not breaking, just changing. Sivak dropped to his knees. Tears formed in his alien eyes. He saw, for the first time, the full truth, and he didn't run. David stood in the center of it all, his eyes glowing faintly, his heart still human. His mind now something more. We're not machines, he said softly. We are storms. You tried to stop the storm, but it's already inside you. Hook, one man, one mind. One war inside the heart of an alien ship. The war wasn't outside. It was inside everything. Floating in deep space, the alien ship began to change. Its surface, once smooth and silver, now showed faint pulses like a beating heart inside it. The crew could feel something was wrong. Know something was alive. David Miller had never moved from his pod. But his mind? It was everywhere. Alien command center. Core Decorol slammed his fist into the console. We were gods among species. Now we are prisoners inside our own ship, Tron shouted. He's controlling the gravity fields. A deep hum echoed through the halls. The ship tilted. Lights flickered. Doors opened where they shouldn't. Sivak stood quietly, watching it all. He wasn't afraid anymore. He understood now. He's not attacking us, Sivak said softly. He's resisting. Alone. Inside the mind space, David stood inside what looked like an alien throne room. But the throne was empty, and the walls were made of Earth memories, photos. Cities, storms, fire, and people laughing. He stood alone, but it didn't feel lonely. He was the only human here, yet he felt stronger than ever. You thought I was weak, he whispered, but I am not alone. I carry every voice that came before me. He closed his eyes. And I will carry them home. Back in the control room, the crew tried to shut down the pod. They pulled levers, ripped wires, flooded systems with anti-energy. Nothing worked. The pod glowed brighter. His mind is defending itself, Tron gasped. It's not just a mind anymore, Kirill said bitterly. It's a battlefield. In the lower decks, robotic arms went wild. Systems opened, reset, rebooted. The ship's design was changing. David was inside its blueprints, rewriting its structure. He didn't know the technology, but he understood the logic. If I can feel it, he thought, I can control it. The alien soldiers, trained to fight with thoughts instead of weapons, tried to enter David's consciousness again, but they failed. Every attempt sent them into false memory traps. One soldier relived David's childhood trauma on loop. Another wandered a frozen earth wasteland for hours. A third? He simply vanished. Sivak spoke again. He stood before the other leaders. You cannot win. We've never lost, Karel snapped. Then you've never faced someone like him. He's just one man. Sivak nodded. Exactly. Inside the mind, David walked through a war zone. But this time, it was not real. It was a simulation of what could be. He saw cities destroyed. Planets shattered. Species erased. He had pulled this data from the alien records, all their past conquests, all their victories. You were proud of this, David whispered. But not anymore. He pointed at the scene, and it burned. Everything turned to ash. This is where it ends. Back on the ship, one of the side engines shut down automatically, not because it failed, but because David wanted silence. He was reshaping the ship like clay, and the clay obeyed. Rel looked around. The systems were falling apart. Crew members were in panic. One sat in a corner, whispering nonsense. Another just cried. One human, Karel whispered. How is one human doing this? Sivak walked past him. Because you picked the wrong one. Back inside David's mind, a strange thing happened. He stopped walking. He sat down on the ground, in the middle of nothing. And he breathed. Calm. Steady. He wasn't fighting anymore. Not directly, because he had already won. They wanted to own me, he thought. Now they're afraid of losing themselves. Suddenly, a voice spoke behind him. It was Sivak, inside. The mind again, but not to attack. He stood still, respectful. You've shown us enough, Sivak said. I'm here to ask. David looked at him. Ask what? What you want. Silence. For a long moment, David didn't answer. Then finally, I want you to remember. Sivak blinked. Remember what? David stood up, walked past him. That we were never weak. You just never understood us. Sivak felt something inside him shift. Not just fear. Understanding. You could destroy us, he said. David nodded. Yes, but I'm not like you. Back in the real world, the ship's power came back online. Not because the crew fixed it. Because David let it. All systems began working again. Stabilized. Controlled. But not by the aliens. A message appeared on every screen. Release. Return. Remember. The pod lights turned green. The hatch hissed open. David opened his eyes. Slowly. Then sat up. His feet touched the floor. No guards stopped him. No chains held him. He stood tall. Unbroken. Sivak appeared in the chamber doorway. He didn't raise a weapon. Didn't shout. Just bowed his head. David walked past him. As he passed the control room. The crew stepped aside. No one looked him in the eye. They didn't need to. They already knew. They hadn't captured a human. They had unleashed one. Final scene. Escape bay. David stood near a small vessel. The aliens had prepared it for him. Sivak came one last time. You won't tell others what you saw? David looked back at him. I don't need to. But why not take revenge? Sivak asked. David paused. Because revenge is easy. Forgiveness? He said, stepping into the ship. That's power you'll never understand. The doors closed. The ship launched. Far in the distance. Earth glowed. And the man who had once been a prisoner. Was now a living message. One that would echo across the stars. You can't break what refuses to be afraid. Hook. He returned to Earth. But Earth had changed. And so had he. But somewhere out there the aliens still watched. And something had followed him back. Scene 1. Earth orbit. Return vessel. The stars were calm again. David Miller sat alone. In Croton vessel the stars were calm as well. The cockpit of the alien ship gifted to him. He had returned from the darkest place in the galaxy. And now Earth was below him, beautiful blue. Alive, but he didn't feel like he was home. Not fully. He touched the controls softly. They obeyed him, not because he understood alien code, but because they remembered him. Everything did now. Scene 2. Earth re-entry. The sky tore open with fire as the ship broke through the atmosphere. Military radars on Earth screamed to life. Alarms triggered. Satellites tracked the ship. At first, Earth thought it was under attack, but then the ship stopped gently in mid-air, hovering above a military base in Nevada. Then it lowered silently. No weapons. No threats. Just one man, David, stepped out. His boots touched human soil again, and Earth held its breath. Scene 3. Military base. Debriefing room. General Bryant stared at him across the glass table. "You were gone 87 days. David nodded. "For me, it felt like years." They scanned his body. No implants. No physical damage, but something had changed. The machines glitched near him. Monitors flickered. Even the lights dimmed when he breathed deeply. "What did they do to you?" the general asked. David answered, "They tried to erase me. Instead, I became something they couldn't understand." Scene 4. David's home. Nighttime. He sat on his old couch. Same room, same books. But he felt different inside every breath. He looked at the photos on the wall. His parents, friends, a girlfriend from years ago. Now he understood the value of every face. "They tried to rip memories from me," he whispered. "But these were my strength." A knock on the door. His old friend Marcus stood there. "Man, you're alive." They hugged. David didn't cry, but his eyes stayed closed a little longer than normal. "I made it home," he said softly, "but not everyone does." Scene 5. Space surveillance lab. Miles away, hidden from public view. Scientists reviewed the data from David's return. Something was wrong. The readings from his brain were not normal. His neural waves had alien patterns mixed in. His body was human. His mind, it had changed. Dr. Elena Park whispered, "He's still connected." Another tech nodded. Something's echoing through him. Scene 6. David's dream. That night, David had a dream, but it wasn't like a normal dream. He stood in a black field of stars. And voices whispered, "David, David." Not human voices. Alien. But they weren't hostile, just lost. Just scared. He reached out his hand in the dream, and he saw Sivek floating in the dark. "You left the door open," Sivek said. David woke up, sweating. Scene 7. Earth begins to feel it all around Earth. Strange things began happening. Small AI assistants started misbehaving. Satellite signals twisted for a few seconds. Pilots reported hearing voices in their headphones saying names that didn't exist. And every time, the signals traced back to Nevada. Back to David. Scene 8. Government meeting. General Bryant slammed his fist down. "He's a risk. He brought something back with him." Dr. Park stood in defense. "He didn't bring a weapon. He is the signal now." The president leaned forward. "Then the question is simple. Do we silence it?" Scene 9. David at the memorial wall. David walked to a quiet place. A memorial for those lost in space. Missions. He placed his hand on the wall, and the names glowed, not because of lights, but because something in him reached out. He felt their stories, their pain. Their sacrifice. "I'm not a threat," he said out loud. "I'm just proof that humanity can survive even in the darkest minds." Scene 10. Alien ship debris detected at that same moment. A telescope in Chile picked up something falling. Not a meteor, a part of the alien ship. Small, controlled. A message pod. It landed silently in the Sahara Desert. Military moved quickly. Inside the pod, a sphere, floating, pulsing, and inside that, one simple message from Sivek. In English, "He changed us. Now we want to learn." Scene 11. Humanity reacts. The world split. Some feared David, called him tainted. Others saw him as a bridge, proof that a single mind can bring peace. Or war. News channels debated. People protested. Some built statues of him, others called for his arrest. David said nothing, because he was listening. To the signals. To the echoes. Scene 12. The final choice. One night, David sat on a rooftop alone. He looked at the stars. The ship fragment in the Sahara had activated again. This time, it created a portal. Not for war, not for conquest, but for dialogue. An invitation. There. Asking me to come back, David said to Marcus. To lead them. Marcus was stunned. You'd go back? After what they did? David smiled sadly. They learned from pain. Like us. Now they need a teacher. Ending scene. Echoes of humanity as he approached the portal. People gathered. Some cheered. Some begged him not to go. But David turned only once. If I don't come back, don't remember the fear. Remember that one human mind was enough to wake up a galaxy. He stepped into the light. Gone. But not lost, because the echoes of humanity had already spread across stars. Hook Kalan. He was just a man. But his mind became a message. And that message echoed beyond the stars, changing not just one species, but the future of many. Scene 1. Alien Learning Dome, Unknown Galaxy. David stood alone in a large white chamber. The walls shimmered like water. He had stepped through the portal only days ago, but it felt like a lifetime. Aliens surrounded him, observers, thinkers, former conquerors. They didn't speak at him. They listened. Sivak stood near the center. He looked different now, though. Longer dressed like a warrior, but like a student. We are ready to understand, Sivak said. David stepped forward. Then you must see it all. He placed his hand on the glowing sphere in the room's center. Memories flowed out like rivers. Scene 2. David's mind as a library. David took them back into human history, but not wars. Not victories. Moments. A father teaching his daughter how to ride a bike. A widow holding her husband's jacket. A child standing up to a bully. A nurse crying, alone after saving a stranger. The aliens felt these. Some gasped. Some cried for the first time. Their minds cracked open. Not from force, but from feeling. Scene 3. The Great Memory Flood. The alien network, once cold and efficient, began shifting. All across their star systems. The signals changed. David's thoughts, his human memories, were now encoded into their machines. Not commands, reminders. Feel, even when it hurts. Protect the weak. Forgive, even when it's hard. Never forget who you are. These weren't just messages. They became laws. Scene 4. Galactic Council reformed. The alien empire that once ruled by fear collapsed. Not by war, but by awakening. Planets once enslaved were now invited to speak. Small species ignored for centuries were given a seat at the table, and at the center, a chair left empty. In David's honor. He refused the title of ruler, Sivak said, because he believed in freedom, not power. Scene 5. Earth reacts on Earth. The portal pulsed once, then went silent. News broke fast. David Miller never returned. World leaders gathered. Statues were built. Children were taught his name in school. But more than anything, something deeper changed. People began listening to each other again. Because if one man could change an empire with only his thoughts, what could we become if we did it together? Scene 6. Sivak's journal, alien voiceover. Years passed. Sivak became the new ambassador of his people. He carried a small, silver chip in his chest. Inside it, David's minprint. Not a copy, just a spark. Enough to remind. He recorded a message. We once saw humans as weak. Now we see them as the mirror we were afraid to face. They fight not just with weapons, but with truth. And David, he didn't break our empire. He woke it up. Scene 7. David's last space, unknown location, in the furthest corner of the galaxy. A star burned oddly. It pulsed every 8 seconds like a heartbeat. Scientists, human and alien, studied it for years. They found something buried in its frequency. A message, one line, repeated endlessly. We are not broken. We are becoming. It was David's voice, still echoing, still guiding, still out there. Scene 8. Final human scene. A young girl stood in a classroom on Earth. She pointed at a map of the stars. That's where they said David Miller is, she said proudly. Her teacher nodded. Yes, but do you know what he left behind? The girl smiled. Hope. Closing voiceover, David's last thought. They took me to break me. Instead, they learned something simple. We don't give up. We adapt. We carry pain. We grow. One mind can't hold a galaxy, but it can light the way through it. Final shot. A distant planet, once cold and gray, now glowing with life. A single tree grows in its center. Its leaves are green. And beneath it, carved into stone, humanity is not a weapon, it's a message. The end.